Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us for Tribune Unscripted. I'm Brandon Dawkins, host of Tribune Digital Media. This is our second attempt of Tribune Unscripted today. We've had some technical problems in the building, and so we're just going to give this a go again.
Yeah, there's an electrician doing some work that didn't realize this was going on and started turning breakers off, which affected us. Good news is we have verified that Trussville Gas and Water did not cause this, nor have they pulled their sponsorship of digital media, because Mike's in the room and he hadn't left yet, though he may start throwing spitballs at us now. We were talking, gentlemen, before we were so rudely interrupted by the power outage, about a new subdivision that will answer some questions and resolve some issues for a new elementary school. Mayor, I'm going to ask you, because I know you're well rehearsed in this, let's just start back at the beginning.
Okay. For the third time.
Yeah. In case you missed it, we're joined today by Mayor Ben Short, Mayor of Trussville, and Dr. Patrick Martin, Superintendent of Trussville City Schools. So.
And we're talking about a potential new elementary school. We've already talked earlier about the property vote that did not go through, that would have actually just raised our ad valorem up to several of our neighbors, as the mayor will point out to you in a moment. But the mayor covered a lot of stuff, and I hate to ask you to repeat it, but it was important stuff, and I think we need to.
Yeah, so what we're talking about is a residential development off Camp Coleman Road, and really the nexus of that is the growth that we've seen in Trussville over the past 10 years, really, right? And so a lot of the subdivisions that you see in Trussville have been in progress for 10, 15, 20 years at this point in time. Right. And so this administration, this is the first residential development that this administration will take an up or down vote on. And so this developer came to us, and obviously we're trying to do the development a little bit differently. And so we know that we got Dr. Martin sitting right here next to me. We know that a lot of the growth that we're seeing and a lot of the reason people come to Trussville is because of the success of our school system. Right. And so you combine that and the fact that Trussville pays 61 mills in property taxes. We're in the bottom half of Jefferson County of what we pay in property taxes, so we're on the lower end. And you combine that with the success of the school system, you're going to see this growth. And so how do you plan for that growth? How do you prepare for that growth? And I mentioned before that we've got a comprehensive planning process that is ongoing right now. It kicked off in April. At the Trussville Civic Center, we're going to be doing another event on May 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. It's a come and go. So if you want to be a part of the conversation about where this city goes and moves forward, please come to the Trussville Civic Center and have your voice heard there. But because of Patrick and the Trussville City Schools staff having so much success, we're having to deal with people wanting to move here, which is not a bad thing. But now this administration wants to take an intentional approach at how we handle development moving forward. And so in this case, with this development, it is the Riggins property. For those that are from Trussville, may be familiar with that terminology. It's a beautiful piece of land. It has 3 lakes on it. And the asking price of that property was around $10 million. So the city of Trussville looked at acquiring that many years ago, but at that asking price, it wasn't something that was feasible for us.
How many acres, Mayor?
You had to put me on the spot. I want to say it's like 100, 125, but don't hold me to that. Let me
125 is what I kind of had in mind.
I think that's where it's at. So in this case, a developer came to me, and we've already received about a 30% density reduction from what they originally wanted. And so they wanted to be true community partners, and this is not always the case when you're dealing with developers. Right. But I also understand that developers will tell you one thing and then do another, right? Yeah. And so this administration, because we are being so intentional about the growth and the residential growth that we do see, we wanted some community benefit from any development that occurs moving forward. And so in this case, there's a few different community benefits. We know Trussville Springs, which has been being built out for the last 15, 20 years, something like that. Don't hold me to the dates.
Over 20.
It's an older one.
Yeah.
That subdivision was originally slated for 586 houses. We've since received 2 density reductions on that project, and it's moving forward. But that's a subdivision that it has one way in, one way out. We have trains that obviously block that intersection a good bit. We do. I'm surprised that you didn't know there were some trains in Trussville, Scott. And we also have some struggles with buses inside there as well. Right?
It's hard to maneuver a bus in there.
It is. Yes.
Yes. It's extremely tight in there, and so
and we did not have Trussville City Schools when that
when it started.
subdivision started.
Yeah, it's been a
So-
while. Yeah, that's right. And so, but one of the community benefits, and which is why I bring the Springs up, is that we're trying to create a parallel road that basically would connect Trussville Springs to Bethune Parkway. The city's already completed a part of that from Camp Coleman to Stockton, so you're able
Right.
to get through there through our industrial park. But this would, at the developer cost, create that next section, which would be Camp Coleman Road to Prater Road. Which means we only have a very small section to get from Prater Road to Trussville Springs. And now we've created a parallel road that not only helps the residents of those communities, but it's also a huge public safety deal. And so our police and fire can respond more efficiently. And if there is a train blocking, we have an alternative way in and can get to you when you need help. So
Once this parallel road is completed,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be almost impossible to be trapped by the train, won't it?
that's correct.
Because of the distance
The distance of the
between-
length of the
Okay.
train, correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the intention, right? We're trying to create that alternative access point. And so that's one community benefit, right? There's other community benefits that we have as well. What they've agreed to do is actually create our greenway, because we have an active transportation plan that we'll talk about on another show that should be published soon. But they're going to create our greenway across the middle of that entire property. And then they're going to turn over those lakes after they bring them up to the city standards for a community park. So the entire community will be able to enjoy the greenway and those lakes, and it won't be limited to whatever development that would have occurred there.
And this has been another long-range plan of the
has.
city of building out some community parks throughout the city.
Instead of just down. in the
Right,
center.
because we've got a great park system, but
We
it
do.
is very centralized. So this is a step in that direction.
And we're working that way, and we hear all the time, that the city, from a perception standpoint, is not taking care of that side of the railroad tracks. And so you combine this and the 25 acres that they're donating for a future elementary school site, which Dr. Martin will speak on in a minute, coupled with the Jefferson County's long-range plan to extend Deerfoot Parkway to Roper Road or around Popstone Circle, it all fits together. It completes the puzzle pieces that we need to have an infrastructure benefit, to have a public safety benefit, and to have the educational benefit. So that was a lot. So hopefully that answered that, but I'm going to let Dr. Martin talk about the school plan, because we know, y'all know, my daughter is at the University of Payne Elementary School, largest elementary school in Alabama, and she's going to the middle school next year, but I have a soon-to-be kindergartner, so I'm about to start it all over again, and we know we have to provide relief to our educators that are within Payne. So,
Dr. Martin, would any piece of property along Highway 11 work for the school, or was there something specific about this piece of property that was extra helpful?
the fact it was free.
It was
Well, there's
free.
that,
That's
yeah.
right. That's right. And I'll speak to a little bit about what the mayor shared a second ago. I just, I can't spend a mill, I can't spend a percentage, but I can spend $1. So as he is talking about some of our neighboring systems that we compete with, they compete with us. When you stop and look at 62 mil, 37.1 of which comes to the school, that generates about $16 million for Trussville City Schools. Take that out by the other two that he mentioned. One is at 92.05, somewhere in the 66, 68 mil goes back to Vestavia. That generates about 66, 67 million. Now stop and think, 66, 67
Difference.
million compared to 16, we're still 2/3 the size of that school
And that's
system.
based on property values of the two
That's
different
right.
cities.
That's right. And then I'll speak to the last one, 109 mil, you're, 103 mil, I think we talked about, that goes to that generates $91 million for a school system that's smaller than our school system. Our teachers, and I'm going to say this because next week is Teacher Appreciation. We were just with the state superintendent earlier at a meeting, and he shared that Trussville City Schools has some of the best teacher retention in the entire state.
He said the best.
The best
The
in the
best.
entire state. If you look at next week being Teacher Appreciation Week, the equalizer for Trussville City Schools is our outstanding teaching staff.
Yeah.
Bar none. We have more students pass AP exams. We went from 6th to 4th statewide, 3rd grade through 8th grade when it comes to English language arts. We went from 10th to 8th statewide in the area of math. It is our teachers. If somebody says, why is Trussville City Schools so good? We have great families, we have great students, but we have phenomenal teachers who are proud and invested in Trussville. And so that's what we are working with, and that is what keeps us competitive as well as the city's support. To answer your question in terms of an elementary school, there are several different locations. We just need one.
Yeah, okay.
I think that as Mayor Shorts spoke to, we're seeing the growth of the community. We're estimating, what, in the next 10 years, anywhere between 1,000, 1,200 students, somewhere in that range, potentially for growth. We don't have the space to put those students. So we would need another elementary school.
But you also announced another big change with that you guys anticipate.
Right, and that's us listening to the community and being creative. So we said, look, community, we need $90 million, which is the equivalent of 12.9 mil to do a high school project, a middle school project, and an elementary project. Community came back and said, no, think of something else. So we've been working since that time on, okay, what is an alternative? We, through grants with the state, have been able to address the high school issue. With C-Wing, that takes us to a 2,000, 2,100 student capacity. So we are okay at the high school with C-Wing, which should be done January of 2027.
Which may have been our most glaring issue.
We needed that, that's right. The middle school, again, we continue to have students who are eating lunch in classrooms. So we looked at that. We're not going to get the funds needed through a tax vote in order to address both middle school and elementary school. What else can we do? And so we thought, all right, there are some systems in the area, one of which I mentioned, who have gone to a K through 6 format. And there's research out there to support that, keeping those 6th graders still at an elementary
As a parent,
setting.
I like that.
Right. And then when they move into secondary when they're a little bit older. And then the middle school would become a 7-8 school, which relieves the pressure at the middle school and gives them room for growth. So one elementary school with a reconfiguration of all of the schools addresses all of our facility issues.
And Dr. Martin, isn't a 6th grader still considered an elementary student anyway? Because I've been through the middle school.
That's
I've got
right.
one going back next year.
That's right.
And they can't participate in 7th and 8th grade sports
That's
or anything
right.
like that because they're still elementary students.
And when you look at teacher certification, those certifications are K through 6. I'm thinking of a teacher right now at Payne who has a K through 6 certification.
Okay.
So, and I have a 6th grader. Sometimes they act very mature. Elementary setting might not be a bad thing other days.
Well, for you youngsters sitting up here, this is the way we used to do it when I was coming
That's
up.
right. That's
When
right.
was this? What year was this?
This was back before the turn of the century.
Okay.
6th grade was elementary school.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
oh, just let me, 6th graders have not become more mature in the last 50 years that I've been out of school.
Yeah.
It's gone the other direction. So keeping them with the elementary side makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
We were not mature as 6th graders back in the 70s. That hadn't improved one bit.
Yeah.
So I like this plan. I think it makes more sense from a maturity standpoint of the students as well.
Yeah.
But in all joking aside, this is how it used to be. We're kind of going back to that same breakup.
And I think it's important too. We didn't mention the numbers, but we talked about when the community voted no on that property tax. It was $90 million worth of projects. We solve our remaining problems with $35 to $45 million instead of 90.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a big deal. For the
Yeah, that
taxpayers.
is.
I don't think the residents of Trussville have ever viewed our school system or our community as a lower, as the lower half of Jefferson County in terms of property tax. I think there was a timing issue there.
Yeah.
I think there was an economy issue there because
Right.
we were under a lot of stress with inflation. So I've got a lot of confidence in the folks in Trussville. I think there will be a time that we can come back and take another bite from that apple.
How will that have, so
and fund it properly.
Payne is, I mean, even though it's overcrowded, those of you who've been in Payne, I mean, it's a massive school complex. Cahaba and Magnolia, not as much, so will that mean?
515, about 425, somewhere
Will
in
that
that
mean
range.
some small additions to those schools or
Maybe
just
one of them.
redistricting?
That's
Okay.
right. But we're talking very minimal. And again, we would probably go back to the drawing board and look at the zones to see, okay, how
Right.
do we maximize the facilities
The
we
space
have?
that's there.
That's right. But the
Okay.
goal is to get Payne under 1,000 students, maybe even under 900 students. That
Okay.
is the goal.
That's the goal.
So,
How would we fund the 4th elementary school?
and
the
that's
property is taken care of, but how do we pay for the building?
That's right. That's something where we would need to get creative and look at, I mean, we figured out a way to fund the C-Wing. And some of that was through state grants that we received. We are paying for some of that with local funds. I mean, I'll just say there are funds that are going into C-Wing that we could be putting into classrooms that we will not be. And so do we look at a similar scenario with a new elementary school? Just by comparison, new elementary schools, the mayor said 30 to 35 million. Sea-Wing, 14, 15, 16 million. So you're talking about a significant difference in cost between a new elementary and what we could do with Sea-Wing.
Yeah,
And that's my concern, Patrick, is we are having to make sacrifices. It's not like
right.
it's not like, you know, we found the end of the rainbow and there was a pot of gold there.
Right.
You're doing this because, first of all, it was a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
The high school was already at 109%
Yes.
capacity.
In that range, yes.
So it wasn't like this was an optional thing. This isn't a wish list, it was a necessity list. So how much more can we sacrifice without losing the quality of education that Trussville City Schools have built for our children?
Right. Well, the mayor spoke to that a little bit earlier. We continue to benefit from their sacrifice at the city level by giving us the penny.
And the city has operated with a hand tied behind its back.
I say that to say we fund locally, with the support of the city, 50 additional locally funded teacher units. That equates to somewhere between $4.75 and $5 million.
It's a difference maker.
If you don't have that, you have larger class sizes.
Right.
You have some electives that aren't there. You give back some of those items to fund more capital facility projects.
And let me quickly add too, all Alabama municipalities kind of have the same problem in terms of your primary funding sources are property taxes and sales tax.
That's right.
And the majority of it. And so that makes this extremely difficult for cities like ours. I just want the community to know, I think we were going to kind of, when we knew you would ask the funding question. So you have to get to a certain point and a certain number of rooftops to offset the operational cost of a new facility, or you have to make those sacrifices when it comes to those local teaching units. And really, I don't know if that's a decision that Dr. Martin or I will ultimately make alone. I think that's going to be community driven. And I think at some point, you're right, Scott, we're going to have to go back to the community with an ask. Now, will it be exactly what it was before when the community said no? Probably not, because now we found a more affordable way to do it. But we do need your support, and we do need the community to understand, like, we've got to build a school. It's going to happen one way or the other. What value do you want? Do you want these extra teaching units to remain, or do you want us to make sacrifices there in order to make it happen?
Our audience has heard this and heard this and heard this and heard it reinforced and reinforced and reinforced. If you look at the top-ranked academic systems districts in the state of Alabama, it took me a while to figure this out, but when you drill down to the local teaching units, that is the difference maker. Yeah. There's no other way to make classrooms smaller, and our audience has been well educated in this. These are teaching units that the state of Alabama does not pay for. These are teaching units that Trussville City Schools go above and beyond the state minimum and hire our own local teachers so we could get smaller classrooms and more attention to our kids, right, which results in academic testing that puts you at number 5 in the state of Alabama. So I don't view the local teaching units as expendable. Yeah. I think that's a number that I know our superintendent
I'd like to share one item too. And I had an opportunity to visit with our teacher advisor. I meet with teacher advisory throughout the year, parent advisory throughout the year, and student advisory throughout the year. And what makes us strong is we have teachers that are dedicated and who have been here a long time. Yeah. We just heard that today with the retention rates. But I heard 2 stories yesterday from staff members who say the other systems call. And what they do to market their positions is less students in a classroom and an additional prep period, because they have the resources to be able to say, you won't teach as many students, you can concentrate on the one-to-one, get to know those students through relationship, but at the same time, instead of taking 50 essays home to grade, you'll have that additional class period because we have the resources to get some of that done. And whereas these teachers, because they're dedicated, and I heard this yesterday, love Trussville, love our kids, they say no. In scenarios like we're discussing right now, how long can they continue to do so?
I have a question sort of related, maybe not. I said I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but I changed my mind.
I'm used to it.
Okay, so a few minutes, or one of the times that you talked about this today, because of the technical problems, you said how many additional students every 10 years?
So,
Do you remember that?
We said 1,200, but I think I'll just be real. We're projecting 1,400 houses over the next 10 to 15 years of
Okay.
residential growth. That's the projection numbers.
Okay.
And what that does from a student population standpoint, if you look at the demographer and take the 1.8, over that period of time, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I mean, it's feasibly in the next 10 years. I think we're at 1,200 to 1,400 more kids.
So here's what I was curious about, just listening to y'all speak. So for the first time, I have friends who have kids starting to get married, and I hear people talk about that their kids can't return, they can't afford to move to Trussville yet. And so is that
a negative?
So that's my question. So does Trussville, does there
depends on the
have to
kids,
be a
right?
Depends on the
plan
kids.
for different levels of point of entry into a city?
Yeah,
Or is
yeah.
that,
That was addressed in the
is it just not important?
No, I mean,
I don't know.
it's important because here's the deal. I just had a conversation, and I won't name her, but I had a conversation with a teacher at Payne Elementary just the other day who moved back in with her parents because she can't afford a home in Trussville.
Yeah.
This is someone in their 30s that can't afford a teacher in our school system that can't afford to live here.
Well, the age for, I just had this statistic. So what is it?
The average age in
of a
Trussville is
home?
38 and a half. And
Well,
the average median income, or the average home value right now is $435,000.
And the average age of a person buying a house for the first time is 40.
Yeah.
That's a national
It is
statistic.
a national stat, but
right.
but to Scott's point, that's why this comprehensive planning process is so important,
Okay.
right? Because we do have to have some variety in terms of housing units in order to allow the ability. I want my kids to move back to Trussville. That's what I want. I want college students that graduate from Trussville High School, go off to Auburn, Alabama, or wherever
Yes.
they go. I want them to be able to come back and live and work and go to church here.
Well, now,
That's right.
see,
So-
my kids can live anywhere they want to. I want my grandkids to move back and live
Well,
in Trussville, but
See,
evidently it's a
yeah.
package deal.
See, my kids are young enough. Yours are,
Yeah.
you got one in college, so and beyond. But no, that's a very fair point, and I'm glad you
And
brought it up.
I was not saying one way or the other. I was honestly just curious
it's
about
worth-
how
it's-
you plan as a city.
It's worth
or
the
do you?
conversation, and I think a lot of these professional planners did a really good job, and it's published online of explaining kind of what those housing needs are. And
They brought some very unique concepts that we haven't seen before either.
they do. They took a lot of the negative. When people think multifamily, they think these large, massive apartment
Right,
complexes.
which we don't want.
But we don't. But doing multifamily in the right way would be a benefit.
Would
It
be.
brings these young professionals back, bring these kids back without burdening, our infrastructure and our school system, but it provides those income points to where we can have these professionals live here and work here at the same time.
And I've also got to say, we do have housing units in Trussville that would fit the price point of a young single professional. The problem is they're on the market for about 15 minutes when they become available.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so they're not readily available, they're not plentiful by any stretch of the imagination. But what the mayor just talked about with the comprehensive plan, I've been to a lot of these. This was a very interesting meeting because we saw some concepts truly that I have not seen before and heard some things that we have not heard before that do look to me, and I'm just one citizen, like it could be a good fit going forward. I also want to point out, I've been kind of a hemorrhoid when it comes to high density developments. Ask Mayor Cho, he'll tell you he'd rather me just not talk about that stuff at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't want a town that is overrun with high density development.
Well, let me just kind of banter back and forth with you for a little bit. So we've gotten to the point where there is a negative connotation associated with high density. I don't
Right.
but,
And for a multitude of reasons,
right,
by the way.
exactly. But when you're talking about high density, so there are developments. We also talk about saving trees and tree preservation, right, being an important thing. In order to lower density counts, that's when your trees come down, okay? But what you can do, and which was part of this comprehensive planning process, there are conservation communities, right, to where you award higher density on a smaller percentage of the land, and that protects the trees
Right.
around it. That's the
Right.
kind of development we need. moving forward, because that protects our green spaces, but it also ensures that we're not just clear cutting to clear cut, right? So I think
And
we got to shift the
we
perception.
don't
on high
have
density.
to let developers clear cut. There are other regulations the city can put in place that can.
Correct, and
stop
that's part of
stuff,
this too in our new subdivision regs.
I have two things to say, but the first one's to Dr. Martin. Would the new school be considered, it won't really be considered a neighborhood school, I'm assuming?
I think that
just
all looks
not
at,
just-
that will come down to what the zoning looks like.
What
And-
size are you looking at for that school?
It's too early.
Well, here's the goal. Get the middle school under 1,000, or right at, get Payne under 1,000. So when we've run the numbers based on 1,400 new students, that school would be about anywhere between 800, 850 students.
That's pretty big.
It's still big, but it's more like a Payne than it is a Cahaba.
A Payne,
So-
2/3 of a Payne.
That's right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's
And
if you
Mayor,
get to that 1,000 mark.
I'm going to share some information because I did a little research on the density. I looked at the top six, the six most populated cities in Jefferson County. I looked at the density in those 6 cities. Trussville is the lowest density, and it's not close. Homewood was the highest. Trussville is a fraction of that. I've also been made aware that one of the major, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus here, but one of the major property owners in Trussville has Trussville in their best interest in maintaining that density, not getting out of hand. So we're in a lot better shape there than I ever really dreamed we were.
Yeah.
So I think continued responsibility by the council and the mayor's office as you work with these developers is going to be the key. Looking at some of these new concepts is going to be the key. I do want to ask you about the development on the Riggins property. What was the developer's initially rooftop ask, and what has it settled into?
So their initial ask was a little over 325, and we're down to 235.
That's
so
significant.
I mean, it was over a 30% reduction that we negotiated through, and I think they're going to lose some more units, because the council will take a first reading on this more than likely the first meeting in May. But what we're doing to this, because again, I've dealt with developers that have told me one thing and have done another. We're doing an MOU that we'll vote on that will then become a qualifier to the zoning. So the zoning won't be a straight rezoning to a standard classification. It'll be a qualified zoning, which all of the items within that MOU, the school, the donation for the school, the green space, the cap on the unit count, there are going to be design restrictions put in place, all of those things. So 50% or more on brick and stone masonry product. Things like that are going to be built into the MOU and then attached as a qualifier to the land rezoning.
So if the original, I'm going to let you have it, if the original developer sells to another developer, they'll be held to the same standard.
Correct, because the qualifiers go with the land, doesn't matter who buys it. That's what protects us moving forward in the future.
Okay, go get it, Brandon, your turn.
Well, no, so here's my other thought. So I've noticed, okay, if you spent much time in Trussville Springs, the new section that they're
Yes.
building.
Yeah.
And so a realtor happened to tell me the other day about a family that's moving from the current section to the new one that's closer together, less yard, and their young family. And I'm like, why would they do that? There's no yard. And he's like, they don't want a yard.
Yeah.
They have green space here. They enjoy the green space here, and they don't want that yard to take care of when they have what they need
it's
along
not
the river.
just seniors
So
trying
when
to
you
avoid that
said,
sometimes.
yeah, like families are busier.
It's a
And not
it's a-
everybody wants an
a good
acre
point.
or
They
an
don't.
estate lot to
They
take
don't.
care of, I guess. And when you talk about a conservation neighborhood, I guess that's.
Yep,
even-
untouched trees, that's exactly right.
Okay.
But that's because the market research shows people don't want, you've got, both parents are typically in the workforce now, right? So
Right.
things have shifted, and we were
We
at a
talked
meeting
about
today
this,
talking
yes.
about demography, and so and really just the general statistics. But I won't bore you with all of that. But people do want smaller yards. They do not want
A lot to take
take
care
care
of.
of it. And then why, if your HOA or your community, if you can walk in your backyard and hop on a greenway, that a city's going to be taken care
And
of.
go through a
So-
park system
that's right.
and, yeah, I
Well,
think that's
and
interesting.
families
Okay.
are at the ballpark 4 nights a week.
right.
They're at dance. They're at all
Yeah.
these
We live at
different
dance.
things. Yeah, I mean,
We
and every family's got something going on. So I really do see people moving more toward less maintenance. Is Trussville doing well in spite of ourselves, or has leadership just managed the city better than I've given them credit for?
I think we're pretty awesome. So, no.
Figured that'd be your comment.
I think, like I mentioned, we've just got very dedicated people who similar to what we're hoping from our graduates. Went to school here, went out into the world, came back, and just really care about Trussville. I mean, we have several sitting at this table here, and so that pride is really what drives us.
And I will say, through at least the last 3 administrations, I've always been impressed with how much the city listens.
Yeah.
And probably don't get enough credit for that.
Yeah.
But they do listen to the community.
Yeah.
Anything that we didn't hit on?
I'm sure there's a lot, but I'll be doing a mayor's quarterly
That's
update
right.
here at a future Tribune.
Oh, that's right. That's not far
Yeah,
away. either, by the way.
we're overdue. We just
Okay.
finished it. I gotta work on what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Well, we hit a little bit on the comprehensive. I don't want to belabor that. I'm glad you brought it up because there are 2 more meetings
So
scheduled, I believe.
there's a little bit more. So you got May 7th will be a drop-in, come and go at the Trussville Civic Center, and then the week of June 8th through the 11th will be drop-in, come and go as well, with a different topic each day. And
Oh,
so all of that's at the Civic Center. We've got professional planners. The firm that we went with is out of Franklin, Tennessee. He moved to Franklin. He was a Vestavia Hills graduate.
Okay,
So he used to play Trussville in
I've heard him
sports.
say
So, so we have a really good team, some other Alabama connections as well. And so very, very pleased. When we talked about, the Planning and Zoning Board has been going through subdivision regulation updates and really looking at what cities are doing a good job of controlling their growth and had good subdivision regs. Carmel, Indiana, Franklin, Tennessee were 2 of the ones that we talked about. And sure enough, as we're interviewing these folks, they asked me, hey, what cities do you want to kind of be your guide? I mentioned those, and they wrote the regulations for both of those cities.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so I was like, we found the
Yeah.
right
Yeah, if you
Really
haven't been to
place.
Franklin, it's spectacular.
Yes.
Sarah was in a wedding there from a Trussville teacher years ago. But I wanted to say to our audience, because our audience tends to be the type of people that go to these comprehensive meetings. They are involved, and that's why they're watching the show. I've been to a lot of them, and if you didn't make the first big meeting and you've gone to them in the past, I would encourage you to go. This was very unique. This was different than what we've heard in the past, and I could not have been more impressed with
to hear.
some of the feedback we got from that group. So,
Gentlemen, thank you so much. We've
All
held
right.
you longer than we should have, so we
Thank y'all.
appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
with us.
Thank you.
We're going to
appreciate
take
you both.
a much-needed break. Stay with us.
Have you been to Discount Warehouse lately? New electronics, brand name makeup, and bedding arrive daily. Follow their Facebook page to find out about special sales on clothing, tools, and fireworks. Discount Warehouse, where you will never pay retail price.
All right, welcome back, everybody. A couple of other things in Trussville let's talk about. So the Taste of Trussville, which is a highly popular event that the Trussville Chamber of Commerce puts on every May, it is sold out.
Again, it sells out every year.
It's sold out.
It's one of
and
the
it's
best
not
events.
a small event. It's a big event. We have
Yeah.
Ron may have already showed them. Yeah, I mean, it's a big event. But it is sold out. If you missed it this time, that event also, that lady is really happy to be there. That event kicks off Restaurant Week. And so that's what the Chamber wants people to know, too, that if you missed your tickets to the Taste, make sure you take advantage of Restaurant Week. Those bingo
Right.
cards will be out soon. where you can go to the different restaurants and there's specials to take advantage of and things like that. And I think if you complete your bingo card,
families have a lot of fun with that.
That's neat.
It's become a big deal.
Just don't buy groceries those 2 weeks.
Right. You're going to eat out a lot. You're going to try a lot of different places.
Yeah.
But everybody involved is offering specials and things going on. So it's a good time to sample all the new restaurants. But I just got to say, Taste of Trussville, in my opinion, is one of the best events that the city does. And the Chamber has always done a great job with it and just made it bigger and better every year. Y'all hear this from Brandon and I every year when we announce it. If you're going to go to Taste of Trussville, you better buy your tickets the day they go on sale, because they're not going to be there in a few days. They're going to they sell out every single year.
Like I said, it's not a small, intimate event.
It's a big event.
It takes up the whole big room at the Civics.
Everybody, it's one of the events that has really and truly become a must-do.
Yeah.
Everybody in town wants to be there.
All right, then speaking of restaurants, we've talked about this the last 2 weeks because the story just continues to unfold. Yeah. But not now our Hero Donuts. Oh, and that's what I meant to ask Mayor Short before he left. But anyway, I'll ask him that later. And now our Rodney Scott's Barbecue building is also closed.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what's happening there.
The Pahacas Restaurant Group is going through some very serious issues. Brady did an updated story this week when we realized Rodney Scott's closed. Sunday night was their last night. And like Hero, we did not report the day they shut the doors. We wanted to give it a day and see if it would reopen. So they were closed on Monday and closed again on Tuesday, and that's when we reported it. I think they're facing $13.7 million in debt. I believe, I don't know if I saw that in Brady's story or another story.
Well, Brady's story had mentioned that the $400,000 in unpaid bills had deepened the financial strain on the group. There's just a lot there.
We know that vendors have put them on a cash basis. So if they're buying food from a wholesaler, they're having to pay cash on the barrelhead. That's any restaurant owner will tell you. They don't ever want to be in a position like that. But there is obviously much deeper financial issues with the Pahacas Restaurant Group than we were originally aware, and it does not appear to be going in the right direction for correction. They've had numerous liens placed on their property. The two buildings in Trussville did not have a lien placed on them. Doesn't mean there won't be one next week from another developer. The developer who they were partnering with for the Post Valley, which I believe is in Calera or Chelsea, where they were doing a whole like retail development, and Pahacas was a partner in this, and they were putting 4 of their restaurants in there. Well, that is the developer who's now filed liens on everything, and all 4 of those restaurants have closed. They've been open only about a year. So I don't know the number, the exact number of closed restaurants, but I suspect it will grow. And it's a shame. Some of these were really good restaurants, and the food was really good, and they were good concepts, but it's just not working out for them.
What I wanted to ask Mayor Short, and we can ask him next time he's up here too, is when that happens, does that mean those buildings are going to be shut down as legal problems are handled, and it's just they could be empty for some time?
You never know. You never know, and sometimes they're able to sell off property to raise revenue. So you just never know how to play out. A lot of that depends on the creditors. We'll just have to see it play out, and every situation's different. So I don't know that that's something that we can predict. But I will say this: that's a prime location for 2 businesses,
yes,
and
it is.
I think when
buildings.
I think when they're available, they will go quickly and be occupied quickly.
All right. Also in Trussville, the other end of it. So the construction on I-59 continues, and different ramps have been closed at different times, and so now that northbound. Well, help me say, the northbound Chalkville Mountain Road ramp will close May 18th.
Yes.
So basically, you can't.
Both ramps on the northbound side. Okay. You won't be able to get off on the exit 141, or you won't be able to get on exit 141.
Okay.
Now remember, they did that on the south side, and they actually came in well under the expected time limit. So those were reopened far quicker than we anticipated. A lot of that has to do with weather, and they can't control that. But if they have good weather, the state has been pretty efficient. Now, you and I talked. The state also put considerable amounts of rewards, bonuses on these.
It worked.
So if they come in early, I think the work they did on the south side earned the developer an extra $1 million because he moved quickly and efficiently.
So, but all exiting into Trussville, you will either, if you're on 59, you can go down to Deerfoot and come back, or
you
reroute to 459.
We think, because those exits are kind of in flux as well as construction work. As it stands right now, we think you'll be able to access 459 north or south to 59, but I'm not sure. I don't think they'll limit us to one exit. I think we will have two available. But again, we've been through this once already, and it actually worked out pretty well, I thought.
Okay, all right.
Valley Road will get a lot of traffic.
Yes, it will.
That always does.
That's a good point.
When this happens.
Okay, let's talk about the story out of St. Clair County that it involved an investigation of aggravated child abuse that ended up leading to a death that's under investigation.
Yeah, it is a death investigation. Police believe it was suicide. And this was, I believe, in the Pell City area. But Sheriff Murray put out a statement on this yesterday. They received complaints about possible child abuse and child neglect. The investigation led detectives to discover that they did believe that was going on. A woman was arrested. When they went to arrest the adult male, they heard gunshots and he's dead, and they assumed suicide. But I believe the Oxford police, Sheriff Murray requested the Oxford Police Department come in and investigate that to establish that it was not St. Clair deputies that shot him. They don't, clearly the sheriff doesn't believe that's what happened. So Oxford will be investigating that. They'll issue a report on that. But tragic situation, and that lady is in jail with no bond at the moment.
Well, and also, and we don't always talk about things in Hoover schools, but with things like this, it can be important. But an employee at Hoover High School was also arrested is facing charges for obscene materials.
Right, and the reason we picked that up is we do have obviously we cover several cities in St. Clair County, but we also know we've got a really strong viewership from all across St. Clair County, and the gentleman arrested, or the man arrested, is from Odenville. So you just never know what police may not know, so we want to get that information out to the community, and that alerts them in case there's issues the police don't yet know about. They can let them know. But that guy was
the charge is actually distribution of obscene material.
Yeah.
So. And
do you have his name?
Yes, I did. I just had it. Oh, I'm sorry. Daryl Aldridge.
51.
He's a maintenance employee.
51 years old, is that correct? Or do we have that?
I don't think I have that.
Okay, but he worked at Hoover City Schools, and he lives in Odenville, so that arrest has taken place as well.
All right, on a lighter note, let's turn to Irondale for a minute. I thought this was kind of interesting. They had, in their most recent meeting, they approved a tax abatement for a business, I guess you say it's CAV Kitchen LLC, that's redeveloping some property on Alex Drive in Irondale. They're expected to do a $2.8 million renovation of a building there, and they're calling it a culinary incubator, which I thought was interesting. Basically creating space where people can come in and cook for different things, and it can be accessed by food trucks and catering companies, and I just thought that was kind of an interesting concept.
It's a commissary kitchen, and so a lot, and people that try to go into the food business find this out very quickly, because it's not uncommon for people to be cooking out of their home, and then they want to start a business and make it professional, and one of the first things they find out is, well, you can't cook that in your home. That has to be cooked in an inspected kitchen that's been inspected by the health department. So, and a lot of food trucks prepare some of that food before they put it on the truck. It's pre-prepared. Well, that has to be done in an inspected kitchen as well. So this will provide an opportunity for a lot of people who are selling food but don't have access to an inspected kitchen,
Right.
and they will have opportunities here. It also gives pop-up restaurants a place that they can kind of get started. And
The whole thing was really neat.
it's a neat concept, and I hope Brady's sitting in here, so this is a good opportunity. I think this is a much bigger story and more interesting than what we just got out of the council meeting. So I'm sure we'll follow up on this and get a lot more detail about what's going on. But that's a cool story.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do there for sure. Also, okay, let's look at Leeds for a minute. So, during the election season this past summer, covering all the different areas, one of the issues in Leeds was definitely talk about different roads.
Right.
And so here at their most recent council meeting, they've received a grant for up to $1.7 million for some improvements specific to this Elliott Lane where there's been a death from a crash.
Yeah.
And so that's through some kind of Safe Roads Action Plan. And so it sounds like they're definitely going to be there's going to be like a review of that area and road changes made to make it safer.
Yeah, and this kind of falls in line with what we've seen out of Mayor Moore since he's taken office. I think he's going back to a lot of red flag areas, possible problem areas, and re-looking those things. And they're coming up with some pretty creative solutions. But the most important thing is he is really paying attention to detail, the small stuff that you may not notice, but in the big picture, it makes a difference. And he and I talked about just identifying holes in the park and getting a crew out there to fill the hole and seed it. Get it. These are little things that have been neglected that the city can do for very little money, and they start making a difference immediately. Then you get a grant of this size.
Yeah, that is a sizable
You
grant.
can do a lot with that. So I'm excited about this Leeds administration, and we've always said that is a city that does wonderfully and has the potential, I think, to do even better. So it's exciting to see good things happening over in Leeds.
And I also wanted to mention in Leeds, because we always try to mention people's events, but the Creek Bank Festival is also coming up in Leeds, and that's coming up on May 16th. And that's their 31st annual Creek Bank Festival, and it's always at Leeds Memorial Park, and that's where it will be that day. They have live music, they have vendors,
It's a
activities
really
for
good
families.
festival. This is a really good festival.
If it were to rain, they've already set that rain date out too, which is smart, for May 23rd. And so we hope that will be a success there, and definitely want to let people know about that event. So. Okay, last but definitely not least, a lot of our area schools have students, our area high schools specifically, have students who are in Gulf Shores today and tomorrow competing in state track activities. Hewitt has a lot of students down there today and tomorrow doing that. And so we, all of that will be covered by the Tribune sports staff, I'm sure. And expecting great things out of Trussville's performance there, so it'll be interesting to see. But I thought that was kind of a nice segue into the story that the Tribune had this week about the former student of David Dobbs, of course, the longtime track coach who passed away in a terrible and tragic car accident recently, and the portrait that she created.
Which was remarkable, I thought, and she did a beautiful job. I thought about this as the state track meet's going, because David and Anita were fixtures in the Trussville track program for decades, and in fact, the track facility is named after them. Tragic loss to David, who was a friend to many in this community. And I'm happy to report Anita is showing improvement. Our prayers are with her. This is going to be a long recovery road, both physically and emotionally. And so I just encourage everybody to keep Anita and the Dobbs family in your prayers.
Trussville hosted those sectionals for their area. Last weekend, a lot of the students had his name, stenciled down their arms who were competing. So
they mean the world to us. They really do.
Definitely. Okay. Well, that was a heck of a show today.
That
Long show.
was,
all
it
we
should have
have
ended
today.
about 30 minutes ago,
That's
but we had
okay.
technical issues and we got through that. But great information from the mayor
Yeah, we
and
appreciate
from
them
our,
coming on. We
from our
had that in the
superintendent.
paper, but just not had a chance to really unpack it with them.
Right.
And so we appreciate them coming by and letting us do that.
You know, Ben's doing quarterly updates with us. That was not it. So we will have him back in very quickly for the next quarterly update. We appreciate that. Mayor Choate was great about that. He spent a lot of time coming
he
in and bringing the audience up to speed on things. And of course, Ben was on council during 5 of those years, so he knew this is an effective way to communicate with folks in Trussville. And I know our audience appreciates hearing it straight from the horse's mouth.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we hope you have a great rest of the week and weekend. We also continue to hope we get some rain the next week or so.
I could use
and
one
work
dry
in.
day.
Yeah.
You know,
Me
we're
too,
watching
if it's
Crawl
tomorrow.
Space. All of us that live in the project
Yeah.
or area or close by, we're always
Yeah,
watching Crawl Space. But it's so far so good because it was so dry. But a day off wouldn't hurt.
Right.
And now I guess do I have my microphone? Now I'm off to Montevallo to move a kid home at the end of a
Sounds
college
fun.
school
Yeah,
year.
you need
so.
a dry day for sure. Okay. But we'll be back next week. We'll see you then.
I'm Drew Lawley, General Manager at Courtesy Buick GMC. Come see us at Courtesy, where we have over 300 vehicles to choose from, including GMCs, Buicks, and certified pre-owned vehicles. Come see us at Courtesy or check us out at courtesybirmingham.com. Proud supporter of our area high school